Let's take a look at solving applications of rational equations. So on this page, I see number 1 says Tom and Huck start a business painting fences. They paint Aunt Polly's fence and find that they can paint a 200 square foot fence in 40 minutes if they work together. If Huck works 4 times faster than Tom, how long would it take each of them to paint a 200 square foot fence working alone? So if Huck works 4 times faster than Tom, we could say Huck takes X amount of time. Tom would be 4 times that. So we would say Tom would take 4x. And how long would it take them working alone? So we've got to set up an equation. We know it takes them 40 minutes if they work together. So one fence, Huck takes X amount of time, plus one fence, Tom takes 4 times the amount of time that Huck takes, and then together they take 40 minutes. So still one fence is your numerator, 40 minutes is your denominator. So we need to get a common denominator, so let's multiply the first fraction by 4. So we get 4 over 4x plus 1 over 4x equals 1 over 40. With our common denominator, we're able to add those together and get 5 over 4x equals 1 over 40. And from there, we can just cross multiply. And so we get 5 times 40 would be 200. And then 1 times 4x is 4x. And then when we divide by 4, we get that x equals 50. And so if you go back, you can say that x is Huck's time, so that would take him 50 minutes. But Tom takes 4 times that amount, which would be 200 minutes. And so then you know how long they would take working alone. Number 2, let's look at one more to get you started. Kent can paint a certain room in 6 hours. So Kent would be 1 room, 6 hours. Kendra needs 4 hours to paint the same room, so put 1 room, 4 hours represents Kendra. How long does it take them to paint the room if they work together? So that's 1 over x, because we don't know how long it would take. That's your variable. Then we need to get a common denominator. So I'm going to multiply the first fraction by 2 and the second one by 3 so that my denominator would be 12. So I would then have 2 over 12 plus 3 over 12 equals 1 over x. Then I could add them up and I get 5 over 12 equals 1 over x. After that, you can cross multiply, so you end up with 5x equals 12, and then you can divide both sides by 5. And let's see, let me get my calculator out. Let's see, 12 divided by 5 is 2.4 hours. And something else you could say is that would be 2 hours, and then multiply the 0.4 times 60 to figure out the minutes. And so 0.4 times 60 gives me 24 minutes. So that takes 2 hours and 24 minutes working together. All right, let's look at the next page. This is application of asymptotes. So number 8 says in the following formula, S of x is the minimum number of hours. So I like to go ahead and write that right there. So S of x, that's kind of like our y, because it's over there where we normally see y equals. So think of that as your y is your number of hours. And S of x is the minimum number of hours of studying required to attain a test score of x. So it kind of got chopped off, but it's a test score. I'm going to put it over there. A test score of x. So that would be where your test score is, right there, like both of those places. So the first question is, how many hours of study are needed to score 85? So hours, they're asking for what is the y when x equals 85. So the easiest thing to do is use Desmos to help with this. So let's just type all that in. So let's see. We can put y equals, and then I need to put 0.32x divided by, and then in parentheses, so type it just like it looks, 100.5 minus x is our equation. And then I need to find where x equals 85. So just type that in, and then you know it's over here to the right a little ways. And then find where they touch. So it looks like 1.8 hours is what is needed. That's the y value. Here, I'm going to round it. 1.8 hours. So we just found the y where x equals 85. That's the majority of what you're doing on this whole page. Figure out what the x and y mean, and then they're normally asking you for one or the other. So you got to plug in the x or the y to figure out the x or the y. So B says, what score can you get if you study 8 hours? So they've given you y equals 8 hours. So let's just type y equals 8. And then you just find where those touch and pick out the x. So x, which is your test score, would be 96.6. All right. And then C says how many hours of study, so that's asking for y, hours of study, are needed to score 100. So they're telling you when x equals 100. So just type that in and find the y. So x equals 100. Let's see, where do they touch? 64 hours, so that sounds like a lot, but that's just based on our formula. So for each one of these problems, start by deciding what is your x and what is your y. Type the function into Desmos, so you can just type in y equals 300 over x plus 10. Then I can see it says average cost is your c of x. So that's your cost, that's like your y. And x is the number of units of plywood. And then use that information just like I did on the first one. Rewind and watch it again if you need to. And these work very similar. You're just plugging in an x to figure out the y, or you're plugging in the y to figure out the x after you type the function into Desmos. All right, so I hope that helps you guys get started today.